Response. We're going to start out with an invocation with Patty and Febro from the Congressman's office. Patty?
Well, of course, we want to thank our servers tonight. Would you give them a hand and thank them for their service? Tonight, and let's get down to business and go to the Lord. Gracious God, our Creator and Provider, your word declares, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. And we embrace that with respect and gratitude for your providence toward us. We thank you for freedoms and for those who so faithfully serve in our brave military. Keep our defenders safe by night and day. Lord, you know that we are part of a greater group who want what is best for America, embracing those who seek office to serve our community, state, and country. Thank you for sending us President Donald J. Trump. Let him embrace the words of President Abraham Lincoln, who prayed, I cannot guide the affairs of this nation without thy help, Lord. So we implore you to silence his oppressors as we make America great again. And now, although we may be divided tonight in our allegiance to our preferred candidates, let us come together in a spirit of unity so that we may elect good, honorable, and bold Republicans who will embrace our ideals as they govern. May we determine to be champions for justice, for today we can agree on this: God with unity bless the United States of America. Amen and amen.
Thank you, Patty. Next, I'm going to have Tom Dunn. Some of you may know Tom Dunn. He's running for Palm Bay City Council, so he's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please remove your hats. I just want to say, as a veteran, there's no greater honor than to stand here and say this pledge. Please join me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just again want to thank everybody for being here. I'm going to introduce our officers. Pamela South, you'll stand up. She's our vice chair. Matt,
Let me in the way too. Let me let you speak fine. And we're going to go back this way. I'm going in the crew.
we have Bryan Lober, but he's not here yet. He'll be here in a little bit. And again, I'm going to thank everybody here for supporting the Trump Club of Brevard. We are on Facebook under Trump Club of Brevard, or under, you can look under me, Susan Hodgers, Hodgers, and then I can add you on. We're going to start here just very shortly, in a minute. I like to stay on time so everybody can get to hear all the candidates and learn about everybody. We have a representative from Florida today. Is it Nora Rangel? Where's Nora? And Alberto, where's Alberto? Oh, there you are. And Space Coast Daily, so this will be broadcast live. If you forgot about what a candidate said, this will, the links will go out on social media and you can rewatch it. Pamela Sal is going to help keep the time, so we are not here until midnight. And I'm going to have Dr. Craig Delish. He's going to introduce our first speaker.
Okay, thank you all for coming. This is really a great event, and I want to thank Susan for putting this together. She's done a phenomenal job, so how about a big hand? I understand, Bryan, it's an open bar? Yeah. Okay, great. So I am pleased, privileged, and honored to introduce the person who I believe is the next Attorney General of the state of Florida. So, for those of you who are not familiar, okay, I am here to introduce a judge. And not only is Judge Moody the youngest judge in the history of the state of Florida, she's a former prosecutor, both federal and state. She taught the role of Attorney General. She has a master's degree in law from Stetson. She has an accounting degree and a law degree from the University of Florida. And I have personally met all the candidates running for Attorney General, and I can stand here with confidence and tell you that she is the most qualified person to run for Attorney General. She will do a much better job of telling you her qualifications and her positions, but I think that most of you are probably proud of our current Attorney General, and I can tell you that Judge Moody is endorsed by Pam Bondi, correct? Okay. So with that said, if you've watched some of the commercials that are on TV for Attorney General, they are not true. If they, I would encourage you to verify whatever you see on TV. And it again is my pleasure, my honor to introduce the next Attorney General for the state of Florida, Judge Moody.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be with you today. Such an honor. I have a great affection for this county. Early on, when I started running to be your Attorney General, I had resigned my position as a judge, and I entered this world of partisan politics, which has really become a blood sport. Your sheriff has been by my side from the beginning. Sheriff Wayne Ivey, your state attorney, Bill Archer. So I have a strong affinity for this county, and I hope I'll make you proud as your Attorney General. What an exciting time to have the president come visit our state last night. I was at a campaign event down south, and you could feel the energy all the way in South Florida. The momentum and the energy. We are refocusing on all that founded our country, the ideals. We are rebuilding a party based on respect for the rule of law and enforcing all of our laws and respecting the principles in our Constitution. We're re-energizing passion and love for our home, our country, the United States of America. All across the state of Florida, we can feel it, and I'm proud to be on the campaign trail talking about the conservative approach to government, the need to elect conservative leaders that understand the principles our country was built, the strength to adhere to those principles even when times are tough and they're getting protested and attacked and ambushed, the understanding by those leaders that we the people are the ones that gave them the power to be leaders. And I was a judge for over a decade. I had served first as a lawyer doing business litigation for Holland & Knight. It's a large law firm in Florida. I was then a federal prosecutor. I prosecuted cases in Jacksonville and Tampa. And then I became a judge in 2006. And I was thinking of running for the role of Attorney General, and I had gone home and discussed it with my husband, who is a career law enforcement officer. And we are conservatives, and we knew entering this world it would not be easy. Though I've been a Republican since college, we knew that going into partisan politics, you get attacked repeatedly, especially if you're conservative, sometimes from within your own party. And it was Justin who offered the clarity to me, as we had been sitting around for years, struggling, watching leaders go outside their scope of power, not enforce our rule of law, as law enforcement officers got intact just because they were law enforcement officers. We knew it was time for strong leadership as the top cop and the top prosecutor. And my husband Justin said, Ashley, if what is keeping you from running for this important position is the process to get there, then you have to do it. Because if people like you that have been lawyers and prosecutors and judges don't step up and run to be the Attorney General, strong conservatives, then who do we have running? And my race evolved into just that. When I started running a year ago, I was running against 3 sitting politicians, none of which had ever prosecuted a case. And Florida is having a difficult time getting our arms around really difficult issues like elder abuse. 1 in 10 seniors will be abused. The opioid epidemic continues to kill 15 people a day in Florida. Human trafficking has taken a hold of our state. We are 3rd in the nation in terms of human trafficking. We went up 54% in 1 year of incidents of human trafficking. And we have to have a leader that understands the importance of the men and women in law enforcement and will stand at their side. I was never so proud to have our president come out and say, when people started protesting our flag, disrespecting our country's flag, in protest in general of law enforcement, I was never so proud as when he said, that is unacceptable. Especially coming from a family of law enforcement, as someone who worked alongside them to prosecute cases, as someone whose husband's life got put on the line during an arrest situation by someone who should not have been in this country. I was never so proud of our president, and I will back him come what may, because he understands that in order to be a nation, a strong nation under a rule of law, we must enforce those rule of law, and we must have executives in the executive branch that will be held accountable if they do not. And that is one thing that our president stresses over and over. He understands that a country without strong borders, a country that is not willing to say, we will keep those out but will do us harm, is a weaker country. He understands that a nation under a rule of law is what sets us apart from other countries. He understands that backing law enforcement and rooting out criminal illegal immigrants from our communities is a #1 priority, and understands that our officers are on the line every day rushing in when we rush out, and to keep them safe we must do that. He understands it's important to appoint judges and people within government that there is a limited scope for people we put in offices. There is a limited scope of power, and they better held accountable to that power, or we're gonna make sure they're not in office anymore. And he has done an amazing job of appointing conservative jurists. He is putting people in those positions at record pace. We have a great Supreme Court justice in nominating Brett Kavanaugh, and I predict he will be appointed and nominated and confirmed to that court, and you can all be proud of that president you put in office. And he's on the Supreme Court. The Attorney General role is the top cop in the state of Florida. It is the top prosecutor, the chief legal officer. I am the only one running for this position in this primary that has prosecuted a case, that has tried a case to verdict, that understands what it takes to make meaningful progress on some of these difficult issues. I have upheld stand your ground in our Second Amendment in a court of law. I'm the only candidate to do that. I was born and raised in Plant City, Florida by a family who taught me that the protection of life and property and individual rights is the responsibility of our government. I was raised to believe that we should stress individual responsibility just as much as we stress individual rights. I was raised to believe that we need to hold up and respect the men and women in law enforcement, because they're the ones that carry out the effect of the rule of law. Florida has been named as one of the states whose AG's office could flip Democrat this year. I refuse to let that happen. We already have a Democrat candidate that's coming out and saying, I will sue the administration to advance liberal causes. I will sue my own legislature to advance what I believe should be the law. Which, if that doesn't scare you, that is the entire premise on what our country is built, a separation of powers and understanding that you do not use the court to advance issues. Courts are there to protect individual rights and ensure that the laws that are written by the people we elect are applied. You people in courts are not the people that effectuate policy, and you cannot have an attorney general that pushes that agenda. I hope that you will stand with me and join my team. Like I said, I've been endorsed by Sheriff Wayne Ivey, State Attorney Phil Archer, nearly 90% of the Florida Republican sheriffs across the state. All statewide law enforcement organizations have endorsed my candidacy, including FOP, PBA, Florida Chiefs of Police, Maggie's List, the Conservative Women's Group, Congressman Matt Gaetz, and Attorney General Pam Bondi. These are a few of the individuals who have joined and supported Team Moody, and I hope you will see fit to do the same. I could really use your help. This is a difficult battle, one that I could use true patriots, lovers of our country, of our Constitution, to help me get there. If you support me and make me your nominee in August, I will win this election for you in November. We will show the Democrats what happens when that blue wave crashes into a red wall. So hope you'll join me. I'd love to have you.
Does anybody have any questions for Judge Moody? We can take one or two.
I take that to mean you're all on Team Moody. I'm very excited. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
All right, we're gonna switch some race around. I'm gonna have the circuit judge race. I'm gonna have Jim Vicarious introduce our next candidate. And I just want everybody to know that I invited all candidates. I invited the other Attorney General candidate as well as our next candidate's opponent. So Jim is from over in Seminole County. He's an attorney, and he had the privilege to bring his entire family to see Donald Trump and get inaugurated. So I'm jealous. All right, he's going to introduce our next candidate for circuit judge.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jim Vicarious. I'm a lawyer. I'm from Seminole County, and I'm here to introduce my very good friend Adam Pollock. He's running for judge, for circuit court judge. This room is electric. I love the energy in here, and it reminds me a lot of Donald Trump's inauguration. That was a real fun day, so I really enjoyed that. So it's good to be around everybody that made that happen. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about Judicial Canon 7 before all the judges, judicial candidates get up here. In Florida, judges are required, and people running for judge are required to be non-party affiliate. They're not allowed to tell you what party they're in. They're not allowed to say how they're going to rule when they get on the bench. The whole purpose behind that is you want fair and impartial, balanced people on the bench that are dispensing justice. No matter who is in front of them, they're going to be just about what's going on. But they can say certain things. They can talk about, what Supreme Court justice they like, whether they like the Constitution or not, things like that. So it's okay. Things like that. So when all the judges were talking to you, just remember there's certain things they can't say, otherwise they immediately get yanked and they can't run for judge anymore. So just remember that. Adam is a 20-year lawyer. He's board certified. There's less than 1% of the 106,000 lawyers in Florida are board certified. What does that mean? He knows the law. He's been to trial over 75 times in front of juries. Day one, when you vote for him and he gets elected as judge for our circuit, Seminole and Brevard County, he's going to know what to do, and he's not going to screw up. All right, but I can keep talking about Adam. I'm going to let Adam talk to you a little bit. All right, come on up, Adam.
Thank you, Jim. It is a real honor. Thank you, Susan. Thank you to everybody here for giving us this opportunity to introduce ourselves to you. I want to shout out to Blaze Tredis. It's Blaze's fault that I'm even here in the first place, because some 20 years ago, Blaze took a chance on a young lawyer, and he saw something in me, and he gave me an opportunity to come up here and become an assistant public defender with the Office of the Judicial Circuit. And so it's there where I got to learn how to be a great attorney, and I took that experience, and the judges recognized that. Sorry about that. The judges recognized my abilities, and they took me on as a staff attorney, and I was a senior staff attorney for the 18th Judicial Circuit. And then after that, I opened my own office up, and I've been a small business owner since 2000. And I've never missed a payroll. I've always made sure that my employees were taken care of, and I've always made sure my clients were taken care of. And in the process, I've had an opportunity to try, as I said, over 75 jury trials. And I pushed myself. I push myself all the time. And I push myself to become a board-certified lawyer because that is the best. That is the gold standard of what you want in a trial lawyer. You want someone who the Florida Bar has vetted, who has tested, and who has checked with other members of the community to make sure that this lawyer knows what they're doing. I think that standard. So why do I want to be a judge? I want to be a judge because I strongly believe that judges, they're the gatekeepers. They are the ones that protect the Constitution. They protect the rule of law. And the judges are here to make sure that people who want people to do things differently than the rule of law, they're there to say no. They're there to enforce the law. And if you don't like the law, there's a remedy. And it's not from the courts. The remedy is to go to your legislature and ask the legislature to change the law. The remedy is if you don't like something in the Constitution, then you go and seek a constitutional amendment and vote on that. That's how it's done. And that's why I'm running. I'm running because my opponent, who was invited to be here, is afraid. She's afraid to stand up to you, the voters, and be elected. Because she has not faced an election before. And I firmly believe that we should all be able to exercise our fundamental right to vote. That's what this country is all about, and that's what makes America great, is that we have the right to vote. And that's what's wonderful about this country. So when I become a judge, I'm going to follow the rule of law. I'm going to have a great demeanor in front of people. And something I've learned along the way, my son's Boy Scout troop, they have this saying. They have the saying, and what they're saying is, you have 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. And as a judge, it's so important for a judge to observe and watch and listen to what's happening in the courtroom. Listen to each person who's talking to the judge. Because when a judge speaks, their words have a ripple effect, not just on the person in front of the judge who's being judged, but their community. Because everything that a judge does has a ripple effect out in your community. And we want to have judges who can be relied upon to follow the rule of law. We also want judges who aren't beholden to anybody. And that's why I made a very difficult decision at the beginning of my campaign to decide to forego campaign contributions. I'm self-financing this campaign because I truly believe in this job, and I truly believe that we should be independent as judges. If you can remove money from the campaign, it certainly helps. No one can come before me and wonder, did I give this judge enough money for his campaign, or did my opponent give the judge money for the campaign? And likewise, no one can be afraid of this judge. They know that this judge is going to follow the law and just rule based on what the law says. And as Justice Scalia says, a great judge isn't always going to be a happy judge. And the reason they're not always going to be a happy judge is because sometimes following the law is a difficult thing to do. But that's what I'm hired to do by you, to follow the law and enforce the law. And that's what I will do if I'm elected to be your next circuit judge. And I would really appreciate any opportunity to earn your vote and to earn your trust, because I'm going to be the type of judge that's good for our community. Thank you.
Adam, I have a few audience questions, and can everybody hear me in the back? All right, thank you. Next up is going to be the county judge race, if you want to kind of mingle up here. I see Rob back there, I saw Katie, and then Anthony. Mechachonis, is he back there? Okay. All right, so a couple questions. First of all, can you explain what the difference, they're running for county judge and you're running for a circuit judge. Can you please explain the difference between the 2 judges?
Great question. So we have 2 races going on right now. We have a circuit court race and a county court race. I like to tell people that what circuit court judges do is everything from birth to death. And what I mean by that is we handle adoption, we handle probate matters, we handle guardianship matters, we also handle everything in between. We handle felony cases, so those are crimes where you can go to jail for over a year. We handle divorces. We handle child custody matters. We handle property disputes. We handle controversies in excess of $15,000. We handle cases where the government wants to take your property. You have to get a jury trial for that. It's one of the few jury trials you can get where you get 12 people. You only have 12 people when you have a death penalty case. Every other case, you get 6 people. You know, that's how important a circuit judge is, because they handle all types of important issues that affect our community. And we only handle things that are above a certain threshold. It's called jurisdiction. The jurisdiction is given to us, and we're not to go outside of our lane. We're supposed to stay within the jurisdiction, because the jurisdiction is what gives the court and gives the judge power.
Thank you, Adam. And another question is, some people in this room may not know what a continuance is. With a show of hands, does everybody know what a continuance is in a court case? Okay. So this person from the audience emailed, said, what is your opinion, and this is going to be for all the judicial candidates, what is your opinion on continuances in a case? For example, how long, if you were elected judge, would you allow for continuances? Would it be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20?
So, justice delayed is justice denied, I've been told. And what I mean by that is you can't expect a case to go on for years and years and years. That's not fair to anybody involved in the process. It's not fair to either party. It's not fair to the community. That being said, we have something called due process of the law. And what that means is each party is entitled to be able to put on their case in a fair manner. There has to be weight, there has to be balance. And so you need a judge who has the experience and the ability to recognize when a request for more time is a legitimate request versus a request for more time not being a legitimate request. And that's where I bring my experience to the bench. Comes in. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I'm able to understand what is considered a legitimate reason for more time versus an illegitimate reason for more time. Nobody wants this process to be rushed and result in the wrong result, but we do want this to be done in an efficient way. And because I own my own business, I understand the need to be
And one last one that I'll say. Who is your favorite Supreme Court justice? I'm sure you've probably got this before.
There's been a lot of Supreme Court justices. What I can tell you is that Justice Scalia has always impressed me. And the reason he's always impressed me is because the way he approaches a legal problem. He will look at the text, the original text. He'll go to the Constitution, for instance, and he'll read the Constitution, and he'll read every time. He'll read. So I was saying Justice Scalia will read the Constitution before he makes a decision. He'll look at the original source document. He'll look at the law that's in question. He'll try to discern what did the legislature intend before he will make a decision and a review of the law. He has produced some of the greatest opinions that we've had out there. He allows for people, he recognizes that privacy rights are important. He is one of the reasons why police officers who get search warrants for certain things that they didn't really have to get. Is Justice Scalia recognized that the Constitution protects people like us from the government. So it's important that we have justices who are willing to put their neck out, follow the law, even if it's not the most popular thing to do. But Justice Scalia understood the need for judges to follow the law. And he's the one that said that a great judge isn't always going to be a happy judge, because a happy judge isn't always following the law.
So just remember, August 28th is the primary election. That's going to be the only election for Circuit Court Judge. So remember, Adam Pollock, Circuit Court Judge, 18th Circuit, Brevard in Seminole County. Thank you.
to speak directly into the microphone because a lot of the people cannot hear what's going on. I want to introduce the next 3 candidates for county judge. I have several questions, 4 questions each for you guys, so if you guys want to stand up here and I'll rotate the microphone. We're going to do 2 minutes for each. All right, John LaSalle is going to be the keeper of the time. So everybody's going to have a minute to introduce yourselves, and then when I ask the questions, a minute for the response. I'll start with Katie Jacobus on the left.
Good evening. I'd like to first thank the Trump Club for organizing such a fantastic event this evening. My name is Katie Jacobus, and I'm running for Brevard County Court Judge. I was raised here in Brevard County. In fact, I grew up across the street from my husband, Curt, and we have an 8-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter that attend our local public schools. I'm a former prosecutor and now a small business owner. My husband and I own Jacobus Law, where I practice in criminal defense, and he practices in civil litigation. Curt, my husband, is a former deputy with the Brevard County Sheriff's Office, so you can imagine the dinner conversations about some of my cases can be quite interesting to say the least. I've learned several things on this campaign trail, but one thing that I've learned is evidently I look young. I'm 42 years old, and I practiced law for many years. I've served on both a prosecutor for many years and a criminal defense attorney for several years. And that's one thing that sets me apart from my opponents, is that I have substantial time on both sides of the criminal bench. As a trial attorney, I practice law throughout the state of Florida. I've been in front of many judges of all levels of experience, and I know what makes a great judge. And those qualities are being prepared, using common sense, applying the law, and then deciding. I can bring those qualities to the bench. I ask for your vote on August 28th.
Next is Anthony Mechachonis.
Hi, my name is Anthony Mechachonis, and I'm a candidate for County Court Judge here in Brevard County. I'm not really a politician, so it's difficult for me to say that why I'm running for a county campaign, but basically because it's kind of the natural progression of my career. I've been a practicing attorney for the past 20 years. Most of that time I've been a criminal prosecutor with the state attorney's office. I'm a Navy veteran. After I got out of the service, I worked in the Department of Corrections to put myself through school, and after I got my law license, I started working with the criminal justice system, and I had, like I said, 20 years of experience, and
Okay, can everybody hear me? Get away from the speaker. 1 minute's not very long, but I'll try to be quick. My name is Kernan. I want to thank the Trump Club and everybody else for putting this on. Glad to be here. Myself, I'm born and raised right here in Brevard County, 3rd generation. I know what it's like to work hard. I put myself through school while raising 3 daughters. They're 31, 29, and 27 now. They're all college grads, 2 gators in one night. And I worked at Lockheed for 8 years. I was a shuttle technician. And I decided after I earned my degree, what am I going to do with it? So I decided to go to law school, and I went to law school. When I graduated, I worked as a prosecutor and also as a public defender in Osceola County. I worked for 2 law firms. I've had my practice for 18 years. Well, I've been practicing for 18 years, and I practiced myself for about 16. And just about every area of law, except probate, I've done just about everything else. Family, civil litigation, insurance litigation, criminal, several jury trials, many hearings, many motions to suppress. I've been across several different counties surrounding Brevard County in front of many different judges, and I know what it's about to be fair and honest to people. Vote for me, rodkernan.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rod. All right, I'm going to rotate the questions. I'm going to start with Katie on the left, and then I'll rotate this way. This question is for all of 3 of you. Detail your trial experience. Include the approximate date of the last trial, how many jury trials versus non-jury trials you had. If you have not had any jury trial experience, please detail your experience in handling evidentiary hearings in court. So now, and you have a minute, and John has some.
I'm going to try and keep up with all the elements of that question. My most recent jury trial was, I think, about 2 years ago when I was at the state attorney's office. In private practice, about 5% of your cases go to trial, and I actually was in private practice for several years and went back to the state attorney's office because I wanted to get back into the courtroom as far as the trial experience. I've had, I believe, 8 or 9 jury trials, and I believe 20 overall trials. I served for several years in the juvenile division, and that's a bench trial in front of the judge where I had several of my trials.
Thank you, Katie. Detail your trial experience. If you haven't had any trial experience, detail your evidence and handling evidence.
Over the past 20 years, I have had probably greater than 50 jury trials, countless motion hearings. Those occur daily. I haven't had a jury trial in 7 years, and that's because I'm now with the state attorney's office in the felony intake division. What that requires of me is to work with the police agencies to determine what charges will go against what the defendants that are arrested. Sometimes no charges. That's what I do have done in the past 7 years. But I have quite a bit of trial experience.
Okay, that's hard to answer in about a minute. But through my 18-year career, I've had countless motions, countless hearings, probably about 15 jury trials. My last one was 2015. That was a DUI trial here. I've also had a trial in 2010. These are 2 jury verdicts. Before that, a circuit trial. Had just multiple hearings, and as a public defender, that was probably a trial a week in Osceola County. And with the state attorney's office back in '99, it's hard to remember that far ago, but I remember several jury trials that I performed back then. Since then, I've done administrative hearings, family law trials, custody trials. If anybody's interested, call me at 321-720-7948. Email me at rodkernan.com. I'll be more than happy to answer more specifically if anybody has any additional questions regarding that. Just anytime, give me a ring. Thank you.
All right, the next question is, what are your thoughts on judicial activism and legislating from the bench? Anthony?
I don't believe in legislating from the bench. The legislature's job is to create the laws, the executive position is to enforce the laws, and the judicial determines, clarifies the law. That's my
I'll agree with my colleague. I wouldn't want to legislate with the bench. I'm a constitutionalist at heart. I think there was a discussion before about Justice Scalia. He's a four corners document kind of guy, and I really enjoy his writings. But it is up to the legislature. Judges are not to make those interpretations. It's just to follow the law as written. And if there's any question to that, I think those will be left to the appeals court. But we'll be in county court. Very simple subjects, and if anything arises regarding an appeal, if I were to get elected and make a mistake, I hope it's corrected. Just would hope not to do that. But first of all, I would honor the Constitution. Thank you.
I believe it's the judge's role to apply the law based on the facts that are presented to them. I don't believe that it's the judge's role to legislate from the bench. I believe that they should follow the Constitution and apply the law.
Thank you. All right, we're going to start with Rod on this one. In an ideal world, should judges be appointed or elected?
That's an awesome question. I wish we lived in an ideal world. I kind of would prefer she'd a hybrid of this. Maybe some folks that possibly would put together a panel of qualified judges, and then from that qualified panel, then go for an election. But I think we're one of 5 states that does election on judges. But that being said, the election process does leave it up to the people, and without that, then you have I think the ultimate good old boy network where they want to get their pal into place. But that's why I favor elections, and I hope we continue in Florida to elect judges. So that's my opinion on that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I have to concur with my colleague here. I think it's best to have elections for judges. Keeps everyone honest, and it allows those who are not that well known or that well connected to get a chance to come up and participate.
My answer to this, and I've actually been through the appointment process, I made it up to Tallahassee, and I think that generally, not generally, but I think everybody should have the opportunity to know who they are voting for and who they are putting in office. I think the appointment process is a necessary process when you have a judge that leaves his term midterm. So you have to get somebody office in there within a certain period of time, within, I believe, 30, 60 days. And that is not, it's hard to run an election in that short a period of time. So for the exceptions, I believe that there should be an appointment process. But I strongly believe that an election process for judges is essential in our state.
And the last question for you guys, and then you guys can enjoy dinner, is the one I asked for circuit judge is, who is your favorite Supreme Court justice?
I would have to say Gorsuch. He was Scalia's law clerk, and he follows a lot of the same legal philosophy that Scalia does. He follows the statutory context. He goes along with the original Constitution text, and I think that he's my favorite Supreme Court justice.
I'd have to say Clarence Thomas. He is the most conservative guy on that bench, and his rulings, I think, rule. That's all I can say.
I've already mentioned that I really prefer Justice Scalia, and the reason I do is because when I was in law school, I was in the top 25% of the class, and I wrote and graded onto Law Review, where I became notes and comments editor on Law Review. So I had to write I also clerked for a federal district judge for a term while I was in law school in New York. And Justice Scalia, I had to read a lot of his writings, and he was to the point, he was precise, but even more than that, he was cynical in his writing, to the point it was entertaining. There was a funniness about it. But while Law Review and doing those writings, you really have to purview all of the writings from the justices, and he was the one that stood out the most to me. And I kind of tried to emulate that whenever I wrote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Again, Katie Jacobus, Anthony Mechachonis, and Rod Kernan, they're candidates for county judge. Thank you very much. All right, next up, we're going to have the Canal Port Authority, Robyn Hattaway and Maclouth. Please come to the front. Canal Port Authority candidates. We have two candidates. We'll go with Maclouth. You want to talk about yourself for about a minute, and then what? Oh yeah.
Appreciate the invitation to talk to us. I'm Maclouth, and I've been a port commissioner for quite a while. Then I retired, and I've been the CEO, and actually I got about 50 years experience. A lot of lot of time there, but I decided that they need a little help out there, so I'm running again, and I'm anxious to do it, and I'm going to talk about a little later on just about what exactly I'm going to do when I get there. I got a bunch of things I'd like to do.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. I'm Robyn Hattaway. I'm running for Navajo Port Authority. I am a mom and a business lawyer and a business owner on Merritt Island. I have an undergraduate degree in government sociology and a law degree from Emory University, and spent the last several years advising small businesses in our community and volunteering for nonprofits in our community. I have two boys, teenage boys, who are getting a little older and more independent, and I am looking for an opportunity to step up and serve our community and preserve our community for my boys.
All right, first question, I'll start with Mac. The port earned revenue of $100 million a year. The revenue is earned through multiple contracts, hundreds of complex leases and tariffs. What experience and skills would you bring to the port to ensure sustainability of those business agreements?
Actually, I did that for 4 years. I was the CEO for 4 years, so I was responsible for all that. Prior to that, I spent 4 years as the Deputy Director of Business Development. We got off the tax rolls. Before that, I was a commissioner for about 20 years. So I've had all the experience. I've done it, and I can do it again.
Somebody has
That was great.
Yeah.
The question was, how could I help manage the $100 million budget of the port? The vast majority of that is from cruise travel. If you live nearby, you see the trucks, you see the buses. It provides some overflow economic opportunity and jobs in our community, which I think is a great thing. I think we need fiscal responsibility and a measured, responsible growth. I think we need to have accountability quotas to make sure that we are not just serving our tourists, but also our citizens. And I'm out knocking doors to make sure I'm hearing their voices in that respect. From a practical level, I have done corporate litigation. I'm familiar with federal regulations and state regulations, and have written SEC disclosures, and am prepared to dig into the budget and find waste if it exists, and make sure that we're allocating our dollars just like we would tax dollars, because they are part of the public trust.
Thank you, Robyn. Second question is, what is your vision for the port, Brevard residents, and the Indian River Lagoon? We'll start with Robyn.
I have three main visions. Number one is responsible economic growth, which means that you don't pay taxes to the port, and it means that we have job opportunities for our citizens. Number two, I want to focus on public safety. As the people in this room I'm sure know, our president is working hard to fulfill his campaign promises and protect the U.S.-Mexico border. What that means to you is we are unfortunately losing some of our border control agents at the port. I want to be a part of stepping up and make sure we are being responsible to our citizens and our tourists. I want to make sure every passenger and cargo ship that comes through that port is being properly screened, both for your safety and your tourists. Number three is our environment. Our lagoon is important to all of us, and I want to make sure the port is a partner in finding those solutions and never adding more risk. Thank you.
Well, we're talking about the Indian River Lagoon, and I have a solution that I've been working on. Actually, I'm a professional engineer and several graduate University of Minnesota a long time ago. I worked at the Space Center. But basically Okay, how was that? Okay. What the Indian River Lagoon needs is a lot of different solutions. And one of the solutions that the Port Authority can take part in is to have an inlet on the south side, just south of the locks. And I'm working on it. I presented a engineering plan to the port, and I'm hoping that if elected, I can pursue that. There'll be a lot of work on that, but everybody has to do something in that area, and the Port Authority needs to step up and help dilute the problems, the brown tides, and so forth in the adjacent lagoon. Thank you.
How would you use the port resources to support the Indian River Lagoon restoration?
Like I just said, they would build a weirs just south of the lock itself. This would be very expensive, and the port needs to do that. That would be the Avocet Lagoon, and to make that on a daily basis with a tidal gauge that would twice a day, I would pump water from the ocean into the lagoon itself.
I think the port's first responsibility is to protect the lagoon from everything going on at the port. There's 40% of Central Florida's oil supply coming through that port on an annual basis. You may or may not know there was a small oil spill a couple of weeks ago. It was contained and handled. I'm against anything that is going to put the lagoon at more risk. I disagree with Mr. Maclouth's idea for a weir. I think that opens the lagoon to risk. If the science supports that mechanism for bringing ocean water in, I think there are a whole lot of other places on the 150-mile lagoon that we can put those devices to support the lagoon. The port right now is doing environmental studies to support their lobbying with the DOT about how we can do better with the flyover bridges and 528. There are some great studies, and the port is fronting those expenses so that we can get good solutions from the DOT. That's the kind of leadership we need.
Thank you. Those are the questions that the board we made up, but we also, I had asked people to send an email of questions from the audience for these candidates. We are the Trump Club, and we don't like career politicians, so the audience wants to know, what is your position on term limits?
I was on the board of Port Authority. We had reviewing our individual charter, and I was on the charter committee, and we proposed to limit the actual number of years that a commissioner could stay to 4 years for 2 of them, so that'd be 8 years. The commission changed that. The Port Authority changed it to 3 years, so they got 12 years. So I was for the 2 years. Two, that'd be 8 years and 2 terms.
I think what my opponent has failed to include is he's going back for his 10th term. I've never run for office before. This is my first time stepping into public service. I have signed a 2-term commitment pledge. You're welcome to confirm that with our U.S. term limits representative here tonight. For this office, you are eligible for 3 terms. I'm done at 2.
All right, I have one question for each of you, and then I'll let you guys go. This is from the audience for Robyn. Why did you switch from the D2 County Commission race to the Port Authority race?
I appreciate that question because I know there were a lot of people in this room that were supporting me in that county commission race. So I'm really thankful to have the opportunity to address that with you. The heartbreaking truth is I didn't find the support there. I door knocked through January and February. I finished those petitions all by myself, well, my mother-in-law and I. But the truth of the matter is the average voter does not know the difference between Chuck Nelson and Bill Nelson. And I felt like in this political environment that it was going up against that name was insurmountable. So I checked my course and tried to find another way to serve our community. My goals remain unchanged. I want to serve Brevard and I want to preserve it for my kids.
Just, if I can have on the D2 candidates, Bryan Lober, and I'm not sure if Chuck Nelson is here. I invite you. Okay. Bryan Lober, if you could make up your way up to the front, please. You have a question from the audience. You served as port commissioner in the past and would like to serve again. What makes you want to serve again?
I have more experience than most people, and they do need that experience. But I was interested in your answer about running for office and so forth, particularly the one about Bill Nelson and our Senator Bill Nelson is not one of my favorite guys, and to compare him with our ex-county commissioner to me is a little tough on the county commissioner. I'm not voting for our Senator Bill Nelson.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Robyn. Bryan Lober, please come to the front. After B2, we're going to have B4, Trudie Infantini, and Curt Smith. Bryan Lober. Is Curt Smith here? Okay, can you send Bryan up this way? Bryan Lober.
Here it comes.
Our next candidate is D2 County Commissioner, the conservative choice in this race. And he's, like I said, I invited both candidates, and the other candidate declined to respond I emailed him and called him, so Bryan's the only person that showed up. So, Bryan, if you'd like to talk to us about yourself about a minute. He is the treasurer of the Trump Club, and he's been a huge asset, so thank you.
With that kind of a welcome, I don't know that I should say anything. It's not going to get any better. So, for folks that don't know me, I'm an attorney. I live in Rockledge. I've owned property there for several years. I've been living there exclusively since January. I've been in Brevard since 2011. I'm not a typical politician. I'm not a typical candidate in the sense that this is my first rodeo running for something. I've never sought office in anything like this before. I'm self-funding. I'm not looking at denigrating someone that isn't here, but I think it is important to point out. And I encourage you all, don't take my word for it, verify it yourselves. On the Supervisor of Election page, where they do have as public information all of the candidate contributions. Look who's funding my opponent. There is a night and day difference between us. I have REP next to my name, not because it's convenient, but because that's where it really fits the bill. That's where I line up. I leave you certainly with the information that you have, and I'm happy to speak with everyone individually or in groups about, oh, I'm getting a stop, I'm getting a red here. Thank you all.
All right, the first question. Do you support using taxpayer money to subsidize private enterprise?
All right, this is an easy one. In terms of any kind of a business subsidy or business tax incentive, the only thing that I really feel potentially warm and fuzzy about is for businesses that aren't here currently to have tax credits toward fuel future tax revenue, but I don't support in any sense simply handing out money to businesses. I am for expanding the economy. I am for bringing in businesses that wouldn't otherwise come here. But offering businesses money when they hit certain milestones, like getting a CO, when they haven't generated a penny for the county at that point, that doesn't sit well with me. In terms of corporate welfare overall, I probably have the dimmest view of anyone in this race with respect to that. I am very skeptical of taking money from us and using it to benefit some other cause.
Please give an example of what county commissioners can do to create a positive environment to increase business growth.
Part of it is just capitalism. I think if we treat folks fairly, namely we don't take their money to support causes, whether they be nonprofits or otherwise, I think folks will come here and things will sort themselves out the way the market sorts itself out. I'm not saying to be totally hands-off, but I think overall as a default, if there's no reason to interfere with private enterprise, by and large we should let it sort out its own issues. We shouldn't overly regulate things that don't require regulation to maintain public safety or health. In terms of what we can do, I think infrastructure and maintaining the infrastructure is something that people oftentimes overlook. But the fact is we have continuous expansion in this county, not just in my district, but all over the county. If we don't have that infrastructure in place, and we do to a degree have decent infrastructure with respect to many of the roads, some of the bridges, but the sewers, for instance, and the storm drains, for instance, certainly where I live and in many other areas, they need to be fixed, because if someone happens to come scouting for a location and they happen to hit this area after we've had substantial rain, they're not going to move here.
What would you do to increase tourism here in Brevard County?
I think that's largely the same answer in terms of letting free market handle itself by and large, and not interfering unless there's some extenuating or compelling reason to interfere. There has been a lot of talk with respect to CRAs. There's been a lot of talk with how to divvy up money. I think taking a conservative approach and leaving as much money in businesses and individuals' pockets as possible is the best way, so that they can make the determinations that they feel are appropriate in terms of reinvesting in the community and determining how they want to spend their money. I think it's something where you will have, at a dead minimum, an indirect benefit in the tourism industry, because businesses, even with respect to hotels and attractions, these are all entities that are paying taxes to one degree or another, and the more they have, the more they're able to reinvest. So I think basically taking a more hands-off approach with respect to businesses, with respect to individuals, taking their money or overly regulating them is the way to increase that.
Would you ever vote to raise taxes? Why or why not?
You know, this is the one thing, I'm not going to lie to anyone, this is the one thing I may not have absolute acclaim with this, but I'm not going to make a pledge not to raise taxes, and I'll tell you why. I don't know that that's appropriate for me to do, given that there's certain things that are unknowable. And what do I mean by that? If we have an act of God, or let's say we have several acts of God and a conga line coming across the Atlantic, and it just destroys Brevard County to the extent that we have animals running around in the street, not figuratively but literally, at that point, if we don't have the help that we need from the state and the federal government, we may have to raise taxes. I don't want to raise taxes. I live here. I'm a taxpayer. My wife lives here. She's in the back. I'll give her a shout out in the white shirt over there. She's a taxpayer, as am I. Any tax increase impacts me the same as it impacts all of you. So I don't foresee increasing taxes. This isn't me trying to give you a Weasley answer out of it, but I'm not going to give you a blanket statement that under no circumstance ever will I raise it. I don't anticipate raising them, though.
Do you think it's acceptable that past county commissions have approved a fire fee?
The question in my mind comes down to, is there really a need? And whether you call it a fee or you call it a tax, the end result is the same. It's money out of our pockets. I'm all for calling a spade a spade. If it's a tax, call it a tax. One of the items that I don't have a problem funding appropriately is public safety, public health, anything along those lines. Now, in terms of whether a fee is warranted, I think that the onus ought to be on whichever entity is looking for the increase to come and to articulate to the commission why specifically the money that they've been allocated is inadequate. And if they really need it, I'm not opposed to funding the fire department or law enforcement with additional funds, but the question is, do they really need it? And I think it's something where the onus ought to be on them to prove to us that it's a genuine concern.
The next question, would you support measures in rolling back a fire fee and make fire departments operate within a budget?
In terms of making fire departments operate within a budget, yes. It's not a free-for-all. It's not an open purse or an open checkbook. In terms of rolling back fire fees, I'm not going to claim that I have the subject matter expertise to tell you whether they're making efficient use of the funds or not. It does seem to me that they are able to respond appropriately when they're called. Now, whether they're overfunded or whether they're adequately funded, I don't know at this point, but it's something that, in an ideal world, I would have done research in terms of contacting the folks in advance, but I think it's very unfair as a candidate, and it would be selfish as a candidate to reach out to all the powers that be as one of four that's in this race, to take up their time and go over the numbers and have meetings with these folks. But it's something that I certainly will look into, and I have no problem in terms of getting advice from the individuals that are in a position to have subject matter expertise in this area. So, as is the case with certain other topics, I can't give you a firm yes or a no until I have more information on it. And it is something I'm happy to consider, but I just don't have that expertise at this point.
All right, last question. Why did you wait until the last day of qualifying to jump into this race?
It's a good question. A couple reasons. One, it takes time to do due diligence. I don't generally do things that are impulsive unless they involve either food or dogs. I love food, I love dogs. No one is going to make the mistake that I'm going to starve to death anytime soon. In terms of other things, though, the real answer, aside from having to take some time to do the due diligence and to talk to folks to make sure it was the right move, there were 3 folks that were in the running in this particular race on the same ticket that I would have been happy to support. However, all 3 of them dropped out. And I had hoped that someone else that shared my values, or at least a substantial percentage of my values, would have stepped in and jumped up to the plate. However, it never materialized. So I was at the end of the game in terms of being a couple days prior to the termination of the period with which I had to qualify. And it became time to either to put up or to be quiet. And I made the decision that having waited, there was no realistic chance anyone else that was decent would jump in the race. So I jumped in there.
Thank you so much. All right, next up is B4 County Commission, Trudie Infantini and Curt Smith. I think I saw Curt walk in, and Trudie, give a round of applause. She had the baby threw up on her. Okay, ladies first. I'm going to have Trudie introduce herself, Trudie Infantini, and she's going to talk about herself for about a minute. And then please just note John LaSalle's little sign here. Yellow is 20 seconds and red is stop. All right, Trudie?
For the record, it was spit up, and I am a seasoned grandmother, and so I know how to handle that. I worked it, and she's asleep now. I'm Trudie Infantini. Thank you for being here, first of all. What a great show. This is amazing. Thank you. That's just something about there you go. You're waving. You can hear me in the back because she's going to wave to me. All right. I brought a cheat sheet. Sorry. I forget who I am. I'm Trudie Infantini. I've been in Brevard County for the last 28 years. We moved here because of the quality of life Brevard County offered us compared to Boca Raton. Compared to Boca Raton was a really great place, but it was a very high cost of living and not the high quality of life. I'm a CPA. I've got the financial expertise to go through budgets, and I look forward to talking to you more.
Well, hello everybody. It's great to be here, and again, I think it's great that all of you folks are out here and you're interested in what's going on. I'm Curt Smith. I'm the County Commissioner for District 4. I've been the county commissioner for 4 years come November. And my big thing when I ran, and still is, jobs, Indian River Lagoon, infrastructure, roads. We've done an awful lot in all 3 of those areas since I've been here. We've brought somewhere in the neighborhood of about 5,000 jobs here since I took office. I've been part and parcel to an awful lot of those myself, and I want to continue doing work on the Indian River Lagoon. I've been the chair of the Indian River Lagoon Council, and as far as roads, before I was chairman, we only did 8 miles of roads. When I was chairman, we did 58 miles of roads. We did that without raising gas taxes. So that's who I am, and I'm glad all of you folks are here.
All right, first question. I'm going to let Trudie go first, and then we'll rotate on the questions. First question, have you ever voted to raise taxes? Why or why not?
No, I've never voted to raise taxes. For one reason, I promised the people of District 3 that I used to reside in that I wouldn't vote to raise taxes unless some incredible phenomenon, just so far out of reach, happened. It never happened. I'm a certified public accountant and an auditor. And as an auditor, I can dig and find the money and relocate it to another place where it's needed before I come to you, the taxpayer, and ask for more money.
Okay, well, that's kind of a loaded question. I'm a politician. I never voted to raise taxes. I've increased some fees, which a lot of people say are taxes. I would say that they're a tax also, but by definition, they're not. All 3 years I've been a commissioner, we've cut the property tax rate. So,
I'll come back.
2 of those years, by definition, the taxes went up. But I think most people are more interested in actually what the bottom line is. And if they write a check this year that was less than last year, in their mind, that's a tax decrease. So if you want to go by definition, you can say I did twice. But in reality, all 3 years, the millage rate has gone down. And I think all 3 years, if all of you look at your tax checks, you'll find they were even or actually they decreased.
Thank you. Next question, do you support using taxpayer money to subsidize private enterprise?
Taxpayer money to support private enterprise, you mean like ABTs, like bringing in Walmart or Blue Origin? Yes. Children's Services Council? No. I voted against that. I was the motivator of getting rid of CBOs, community, whatever it is, the CBO. The charity-based organizations, that's what CBO is. And yeah, I'm the commissioner, and I'm very charitable. I spend a lot of money for charities, I give a lot of money to charities, but I don't think it's my job to tell you what charities you should support. So that's why we're out of the business. In another year, we won't be giving any money to CBOs.
I don't believe in giving taxpayer money to businesses to get them to locate here. I also don't believe that we should be funding CBOs, otherwise known as community-based organizations. It's my job as an individual, if I want to donate to a not-for-profit, to do so. I shouldn't reallocate your tax dollars to do so. As far as businesses, whenever I give money to one business to locate here, if I give it to an engineering firm, now I've placed a competing engineering firm already here, a disadvantage, because he doesn't have those upfront monies to start business. It is not government's business to create jobs. It is my job to create an environment that brings companies here, and I'll do that.
What would you do to increase tourism in Brevard?
I don't actually know that tourism needs increasing, but right now they're spending a lot of money on billboards. I can tell you a lot of things I wouldn't do with tourism money. I wouldn't be spending our tourism money. There you go, that's what I would do. I would improve the lagoon. You want to bring tourists here? I would improve the lagoon. And I wouldn't spend money on AstroTurf. Instead, I would put it back to things that I'm allowed to use it for on the lagoon, which is what I fought for when I was county commissioner. Unfortunately, I wasn't met with any other votes, so we weren't able to do it. So that's what I would do. To bring more tourists here, I'd work on the lagoon with the tourist development money.
Well, I beg to differ. When you were serving with me for 2 years, you didn't vote for anything for the lagoon. I served on the Indian River Lagoon Council. I've been the chairman, and I support tourism and the TDC. They do a great job. Folks, remember, this is tourist tax. This is not your money. Unless you spend one evening in a hotel or hotel here in Brevard County, not one penny of the tourist development tax comes from your pockets. These are out-of-town people that are financing our development. So we've gotten them to support the lagoon through a measure that I worked with EDC. We're now going to be getting $1 million a year from the TDC for the lagoon. They brought USSSA here, again, with no money out of your pocket. And the USSSA, they're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars extra business coming here to this county. I don't see how that's bad. I'm all about jobs, and I'm all about economic growth.
Thank you. And what, please give an example of what commissioners can do to create a positive environment to increase business growth.
Increase business what? Okay, to increase business growth, what can we do? Well, we can support the Economic Development Commission. That's what they do, and that's where I was. That's why I was late. I apologize for being late, but as a commissioner, I have duties, and one of the duties is to go to meetings. In this particular meeting, the EDC, we heard from the National Federation, and we heard that we've got all kinds of economic development, and they're responsible for a good deal of that. Just one example is Walmart. I know that there are people that have chastised the whole purpose of Walmart coming here with their distribution center. Well, you know what, folks? The bottom line here is that they're bringing in $42,000 average jobs, and there's going to be 420 of them initially and 700 when they're done. That's over $30 million a year coming into this county in the form of wages. Their wages are so good that we're losing people from the county that are going there. So there's a good example there of positive economic development.
The question is, please give an example of what commissioners can do to create a positive environment to increase business growth.
The thing that I've always proposed to create a good environment for business growth is to have low taxes, not be number 18 out of 56 counties in the state of Florida for property tax rate. I would suggest we drop our number a little bit. Not have the highest sales tax out there or equivalent to the highest sales tax of any other county. To have expedited permitting processes so that when businesses want to open a business, it doesn't take them a year to get into business. The permit process is streamlined. Not the little bit of streamlining that got done in the past. I'm talking super streamlined like they did in Orlando. I talked with them over there and I talked to them about the process. There are a lot more efficient ways to get businesses up and running faster because time is money. When you first start dishing out that money, it kills you waiting to get that business up and running.
Thank you. And final question from our board before we go into the audience questions. We are the Trump Club, and what's your position on term limits?
Well, I'm absolutely for term limits. There's a flyer that my opponent put out that says that I'm against term limits, which is absurd. I brought in the county constitutional officers to my office when I first took office because I was looking to put them on term limits. But they convinced me that it wasn't a wise idea because they're not policymakers or administrators. But yes, I'm absolutely for term limits. What I voted against was a ploy by Commissioner Tobias. He brought up a resolution to put term limits on volunteers. Well, I've got 64 positions to fill with volunteers. They're very difficult to find. It's tough to find 64 people who want to attend meetings on a monthly basis. Besides which, I appointed them, so I can fire them at any time. So why should we have term limits on those people? So I did vote against that. So just to set the record straight, I am for term limits.
I also am for term limits. I served 2 terms as District 3 County Commissioner before sitting out to run for the District 4 County Commission seat. And I am for term limits for county committees. The reason is because these people get entrenched and they are in there for not 4 years, not 8 years, but 20 years on the same committee. And these are our prized committees. Some committees, I have people calling me, begging me to let them on. Now, there are many appointments. It's very hard to keep seats filled. That's true. But there's about 5 committees that people beg to be placed on. Those are the ones we need term limits, and those are the ones those people have been sitting there year over year for probably 15 to 20 years. So I am for term limits on those as well.
Thank you. Now we're going to go into the audience questions. I sent out an email on social media for everybody to email me questions for both candidates or each individual candidate. So I'm going to go to the first candidate, Curt Smith. If you are reelected, you will be term limited these last 4 years. As a Republican County Commissioner, will you be true to the Republican platform and vote to cut or not increase taxes?
Well, again, we don't cut or increase taxes. We vote on the millage rate. So if we decrease your millage rate, which means that your rate of taxation on your property goes down, you still could be charged more taxes, but that's the property appraiser. If she increases the value of your property, there's a good chance that you're going to pay more taxes. That's not on me, that's on the property appraiser. So if I lower the millage rate, that's the best I can do. I'm not raising or lowering your taxes. And as far as the term limits thing, Trudie, if you appointed somebody and they're on there for 20 years, you can unappoint them. Just change it. It's your call, not them. They don't just sit there unless you let them sit there.
All right, the next question is for Trudie. You're running for County Commission in District 4. How committed are you to being County Commissioner when you were running in 2016 for Clerk of Court?
The Clerk of Court was a position that up until June was myself running against another opponent, Steve Burdett. Had it been between Steve and I, it would have been a good position. However, when Scott Ellis got in the race, I should have just dropped out. I didn't. That's a mistake. Own it, did it, and that's the good thing about the things that I do wrong. I stand right before you and anybody else and own it. Unfortunately, when somebody else raises taxes, they still have a hard time owning it. They can't just look you square in the face and say, yes, I raised your property taxes 2 years, 2015 and 2017. Anything I do, I'll own.
Next question is for Curt Smith. Which current county budget item would you focus on reducing if reelected?
Which county item would I look to reduce if I'm reelected? I would continue reducing the charity-based organizations, as I said before. It's not my job to tell you what you should be investing in as far as a charity. It's your money, you get to spend it on whatever charity you want. You can put a lot on this charity or a little on that charity, or you can invest in no charities. It's your call. So that's the biggest thing I would continue working on, and like I said, in another 2 years, we won't be in that business.
Thank you. One last question for Trudie. Why do you feel it's acceptable to circumvent term limits since you served in this position before? It's public record you're registered to vote in D4, but your other family member, your husband, is in a homesteaded house in West Melbourne. Are you separated, or is this a political game?
Are those my only 2 choices? Okay, I'm not separated, so let's get rid of that one. If I'm only allowed 2 choices, that would put it a political game. But actually it's not. If you would look at my residence, and if anybody wants to go see it, it's at 3 Fountains, Vieira. I showed Bill Meck today because I knew there was a lot of disbelief. I had to go to code enforcement in June to finally get them to repair the wall of my bedroom. I have a mold report that we received in June. The condo was damaged during the hurricane. We went to the condo owner. The outside wall is considered common property, so you have to go through the condominium. I can show you where the entire inside drywall is completely removed and has been removed from my walls since about April. Then we had a hole cut out of the back, not drywall, stucco, and I can show you all the wood rot. I can show you the mold report from the inspector, and so that is why we haven't been living there. But if anybody needs to see it, I can publish the pictures. I'll put them on Facebook for you so you can see a few of the open holes going through my bedroom wall, and that's why I won't sleep there.
All right, thank you very much, Trudie and Curt. Next up is State Representative Race 51. I'm sorry. Tyler Sirois, and I'm not sure if Henry Parrish is here. All right, so we're into the state representative races. Next up will be this 52 race with Thad Altman and Matt Nye. And I do want to reiterate that all candidates were invited. I did hear from Tyler Sirois a while back, and I did not hear back from Henry Parrish. Thank you. Tyler, if you'll give a minute and introduce yourself to the crowd, and then John, the keeper of the time.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for the invitation. Susan, it's a pleasure to join you all. Good evening. My name's Tyler Sirois. I'm running for the District 51 seat in the Florida House of Representatives. I was born at Cape Canaveral Hospital, grew up on North Merritt Island, went to Lewis Carroll Elementary, and then Edgewood Middle and Cocoa Beach High School. I am so proud to be a Brevard County resident and all that we have achieved and endured together through hurricanes and the end of the shuttle program and downturn of the housing market. We have every reason to be very proud of who we are and where we're from. My number one priority as a member of our legislature is to return vocational and technical training into our public schools. Welding, plumbing, nursing, electrical work, these are absolutely critical professions that have always been the backbone of our American economy. President Trump is focused on this, and as your next state legislator, it will be my priority as well.
All right, so the Florida budget has increased every year at record levels. With an increasing population and increasing tax base, this is understandable. However, the excessive waste in the budget is also growing each year. The question is, would you be willing to sponsor a bill to have independent audits performed on all non-essential spending to remove wasteful spending?
No, absolutely. That's an excellent question. Florida has, I'm going to move over here, maybe it's a little. Florida has an $89 billion budget. This year, our legislature passed a historic budget in terms of its size. I view my role as a legislator, number one, is to create a budget, but number two is to exercise my audit authority and oversight authority over some of these state agencies. One agency that I want to get to in particular, I'm sorry, is that better? One agency that I want to focus on and really dive into the details is the Department of Children and Families. This is an agency with a $3 billion budget, a $3 billion budget. They have a 9-member communications team. If you heard me on Bill Mick, they have a creative director on their staff. Now, when I think of creative director, I think of Don Draper and Mad Men. Somebody on Madison Avenue smoking a cigarette, coming up with creative ideas. The reality is that we have to work in Tallahassee to identify agencies and work where the services are being duplicated at the local level, and we can cut that overhead in Tallahassee and focus more resources in the local service providers.
This next question is important to me on the healthcare field. Would you support Medicaid expansion? And if you do, would you support a bill to require those receiving Medicaid to prove their eligibility status on a minimum of an annual basis?
That's a great question. And part of what we have to do, first of all, is understand that Medicaid is a significant obligation of our state budget. Anything that we can do to reduce waste, to reduce fraud, is something that the legislature needs to take a look at. I also want to look at ways where we can be creative in terms of finding savings in our healthcare system. One thing that will reduce costs is to try to introduce new concepts and innovations into our healthcare system, one of which is telehealth. The idea that you can receive services by your physician over the phone. You can get a prescription renewed over the phone. You can get some basic assessment without having to go in and pay the expensive copay of an office visit. So what I'm focused on is trying to be innovative, figure out how we can introduce new efficiencies to the system and not create further burdens on our taxpayers. So the short answer to your first question is no.
This is a less wordy question. Do you support gun-free zones?
No.
If elected, what is the #1 committee you would want to serve on?
That's a great question. I really believe that it is education. The education committee would really focus on that goal of returning vocational and technical training into our public schools. But I want to add something else that I think is critically important and underappreciated as conservatives, as Republicans. We remember in his inaugural address, President Trump talked about American carnage, and the liberal media went berserk. He talked about American carnage, and he said that too many children are suffering from substance abuse and getting involved in gangs. We're losing too many juveniles to these very harmful activities and substances. Just recently, down in West Melbourne, we had a mother give birth to 2 infant twins, and she killed them immediately. She murdered those twins, and they were left to be named by the medical examiner. So part of what I have to do is I have to follow President Trump's lead. I have to work with our legislature to make sure that we're focusing resources on people that need it, that are not always embraced necessarily by conservatism. But we have to make sure that we're providing the avenues for young people to engage in the workforce, to access the economy, to earn a good wage, and hopefully stave off these very horrific events from occurring.
Would you support tort reform, and if so, explain some of the measures you would like to see implemented to achieve tort reform?
Well, one of the things, yes, I do support tort reform, and I want to balance tort reform with the need to preserve our right as citizens to have access to a jury. That is something that is critical for all of us to enjoy as a right as citizens. So one of the things that I think we need to take a look at in terms of reform is to make an effort to reduce the litigious nature of our society. We have to protect business owners from frivolous lawsuits. We have to start examining workers' compensation issues in terms of fraud and abuse and try to scale some of that back. Ultimately, we have to enforce responsible measures that protect business owners while at the same time preserving the rights of the individuals who are truly wrong to have access to a jury.
Would you support a bill to require state representatives and senators to require not only living in the district they serve, but also to require them to own a home in the district and pay taxes in that district?
Yes.
And let's see, that's the end of the questions for the board. I think I only have one question for you from the audience. If elected, will you remain in your position in the state attorney's office while serving as a state representative?
Yes, I will. And let me explain that answer further. I'm honored, first of all, to have the endorsement of State Attorney Archer and Sheriff Ivey. I'm very proud to have an A rating from the NRA and have been endorsed by Florida Right to Life. I take my work very seriously. If you have worked with me before, if you know my reputation, I hope and believe that I have a strong work ethic. I will pour my heart and soul into this job as I do all of my work. The state attorney has expressed to me his expectations. I'm aware of what they are, and I will give 110% to both jobs and do everything I can every day to support our men and women in law enforcement, both in the state attorney's office and as a member of our state legislature.
And one last question. In the news, how many of you watched the Children's Services Council tax a few weeks ago? Raise your hands. The question is, if you were on the commission or a state representative, what would your position have been on the Children's Services Council? I know you're active with the Children's Advocacy Center, so if you could, A, explain with that how that helps children, and B, the question about the tax.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't have supported the tax for the most obvious reason to me is the details were very thin in terms of what was trying to be accomplished. But I have to offer this also as a board member with our local Children's Advocacy Center that relies in large part on private fundraising, private charity. You know, we're focused on providing services to the abused and neglected children in our community. And I will tell you that there are some kids that are hurting and that are suffering. And what I have to do as a legislator is to make sure that young people, young parents are operating in an environment where they have an opportunity to earn a wage, to make a living, to provide for their family, and to own a home. And if we can do that, if we can create those conditions, you're not having a situation where young folks are taking out their frustration on their lot in life by doing drugs or by abusing their children, neglecting their children. So it's something, again, I credit President Trump for bringing attention to this very important issue of the substance and child abuse that is occurring in our communities. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you so much, Tyler. I just want to thank Tyler again. He was the only person to respond to me and didn't duck our questions, so he's always been glad. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, for the next race, 52, Matt Nye and Thad Altman. Please come to the front. All right, we have the state representatives for the 52 race. We have Thad Altman, Representative Altman to my right, and Matt Nye to my left. Please give them a warm welcome and thank you. I want to thank both of them for showing up in this rainy weather. All right, who wants to go first? All right, if you both introduce yourselves and just a minute introduction, and then we'll start in with a question.
My name is Thad Altman, lifelong resident. I was a year old when my family moved here to Brevard County. I've had the honor to serve the people of Brevard County off and on now for about 24 years. I'm running because of my love of this county. The service that I've provided, I've always kept the people of Brevard County first. In every decision that I've made, I have listened to the people of Brevard and made the decision that I felt was best for my constituents. I've had the honor to have served in the Florida House and the Florida Senate. I left the Florida House early, after 5.5 years after the tragic, I went into the Florida House after the tragic death of Howard Fletcher, former chairman, and then went to the Senate when Senator Posey ran for Congress. And then after being term limited, I decided to go back to the House, finish what I had started. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Nye. I'm running for the State House seat, District 52. Been in Brevard County since 2001. Been a Sun Tree resident since 2009. I'm running because I believe we need change in Tallahassee. Just as President Trump has gone into Washington with the mission of draining the swamp, I hope to drain the swamp in Tallahassee. My opponent, again, has been in office on and off for the better part of 34 years. years. I think that's a long time. So I would like to go to Tallahassee to affect change as a citizen watchdog. For those who have followed me in the past, you know, I organized the Brevard Tea Parties. I have founded the local Republican Liberty Caucus. I helped Scott Ellis with the criminal investigation against, I helped Scott Ellis with the criminal investigation against former clerk of courts Mitch Needleman, who's I guess yet to be convicted at this point. But point being, I'm coming at this from a citizen watchdog perspective, and very much want to do right by the citizens of District 52. Thank you.
I'm going to have Tom Dunn come up here and fix it so that way everybody can hear the candidates. Tom, I just want to give him a round of applause for donating the audio so everybody can try to hear the candidates. So thank you, Tom.
Yeah, you have to step down away from the speaker or move the speaker forward.
All right, can everybody hear me in the back? Randy, thumbs up? Okay. The Florida budget has increased every year at record levels. These are the same questions I asked Tyler. With an increasing population and increasing tax base, this is understandable. However, the excessive waste in the budget is also growing each year. Would you be willing to sponsor a bill to have independent audits performed on all non-essential spending to remove wasteful spending?
Thanks. So I guess first of all, I want to say I don't accept the premise of the question, which is that the increase in spending is acceptable. We keep hearing that the reason spending is going up is because population has increased, but the fact is the spending is going up at 2.5 times the rate of population increase. So we just passed a record $88.7 billion budget. Even if you back out the $1.5 billion in Irma relief and the $400,000 for the school safety bill, you're still up by like another $4 or $5 billion. It's still a record budget, so I don't accept that basic premise that we're okay. Having said that, I absolutely would support auditing non-essential agencies, and I would actually advocate for the re-implementation of a bill that used to be in effect where agencies would actually sunset after a certain period of time. That bill was in effect from, I believe, 2006 to 2011, and I would actually be willing to bring that bill back to life to make these agencies prove that they're doing something with our tax dollars. Thank you.
I would support greater oversight of public spending, especially when it relates to holding government accountable to spend your dollars as they're required to spend. As a matter of fact, a lot of times we'll pass legislation in terms of policy and the bureaucracy will just decide on its own. They just don't want to do it. So we do need greater oversight. Also, the bill that required all public agencies to present their budget and their priorities back to the House and the Senate and have them pass them back into law. I supported that bill. I supported the bill that required all state agencies to sunset after so many years, and if we did not reapprove what they were doing, it would go away. That's oversight, and that's accountability, and that's good conservative governance.
As I said before, the next question is very close to me on the medical field. Would you support Medicaid expansion? And if you do, would you support a bill to require those receiving Medicaid to prove their eligibility status on a minimum of an annual basis?
When we looked at Obamacare and Medicaid expansion, the way that it was created in Washington, the legislature of the Senate I was a part of said no. We passed what we called a Medicaid reform package that required Medicaid recipients to work with HMO or PPOs just like we do, managed care. We require them to at least seek a job or job training so they're not freeloaders. We required the federal government that if we did receive those Medicaid dollars, which are our tax dollars, those are our dollars that we've sent to Washington. We wanted to bring those back, but we wanted to bring them back in a way that did not fit the genre of a liberal, socialized medical system. So we required those things, as well as the ability to back out of that plan if we wanted. So I supported bringing our dollars back in the terms of a Medicaid waiver. So that's an expansion of Medicaid under our conservative terms, rather than send that back to Washington to have it be spent by liberals.
Thank you. Before I answer that question, I want to go back to the prior question. Again, the bill I mentioned in regards to those agencies being sunsetted was repealed in 2011. Representative Altman's been in office for at least 5 or 6 of the last 8 years. He says he supported the bill, but to my knowledge, he did nothing to bring it back. So just want to point that out. Now, on to the Medicaid expansion issue. Absolutely not on expanding Medicaid. The solution to all of our problems in healthcare is the free market, right? The more government intrusion you have, the worse off we are. The answer is to get the government out of healthcare business, period, end of sentence. Let me touch on one thing that I've recently been made aware of that's a consequence of the way the Medicaid stuff is handled through the state. So there are these entities called pharmacy benefit managers, and basically what happens is Medicaid contracts with a managed care organization, which then contracts with a PBM. Bottom line is you have a middleman that is taking a dramatic portion of the money from prescriptions and things like that. They do nothing, they scrape a tremendous amount of money out of the middle, and we need to stop that. Thanks.
The next one's a easier question. I'll start with Matt. Do you support gun-free zones?
Tyler stole my thunder on this. No.
I do not support gun-free zones. As a matter of fact, now, if you are legal carry, you can even carry a gun into the Florida Capitol. We've had no problems, and I think it's made the Capitol safer.
For Thad, if re-elected, what is the #1 committee you would want to serve on?
If I'm re-elected, my #1 committee would be Environmental and Natural Resource Appropriations. The greatest challenges we're having here in this county are environmental. We're watching the lagoon die before our eyes. We're looking at the St. Johns River Basin. There's significant flooding problems and natural resource issues there. Water quality, drinking water, the adequate water to meet the needs of the future generations of this county, the recreational needs, the loss of fisheries. There's so many problems that we have. I grew up here, and I experienced Brevard when it had a beautiful, clean, vibrant environment. That's why most of us came here, and we're losing that. So that's the committee I would choose to be on.
So for me, top 3, finance and tax, government accountability, ways and means, right? These are all the committees that control your tax dollars, how money is spent. That's where you can really have an impact on making sure that we're keeping taxes low, decreasing the size and scope of government. So those are the top 3 committees that I would be after. Thank you.
Would you support tort reform? And if so, explain some of the measures you would like to see implemented to achieve tort reform.
So this is a tricky question because, you know, I can totally see both sides. On the one hand, you don't want to hamper the jury's ability to decide what an award should be in a particular case, you know, based on the merits of that case. On the other hand, we've all heard of these crazy awards that just seem completely outrageous. So honestly, this one I need to stew more on. I would be in favor of some sort of reform, I think, but I honestly can't give you specifics right now.
I would. I think our criminal justice system needs a lot of reform. It's not perfect. It's one of the best in the world, probably the best in the world. So I think, first and for all, we need to prevent frivolous lawsuits. It's a great drain on our society. Also, we need to create a system where justice can be remedied in a very rapid form. That's a constitutional right. Our criminal justice system is clogged. We need to allow our judges to work cases through the system more rapidly, both civil and criminal. So we need to have the adequate resources, but we need the laws that don't bog down our justice system so justice can be swift. Anytime somebody seeks a remedy in a civil case, I think it's important they have the ability to seek that quickly and efficiently. And we have a system now that is much too arduous, much too difficult, and the cost of hiring legal counsel is much too expensive. We've lost a lot of our judicial access.
Would you support a bill to require state representatives to require not only living in the district they serve, but to also require them to own a home in that district and pay taxes in that district?
Certainly they must live in the district, but I wouldn't require them to own a home or pay taxes in the district. I don't think that would be constitutional to force somebody to buy property and pay taxes. I think that provision left over a century ago in our U.S. Constitution. So yes, live in the district, but not be required to own property in the district.
Yeah, I think along similar lines in the sense that I think you should be provided to offer proof, right, that you actually live in the district, but at the same time I agree, I personally am a renter, right, so if I said yes, I would, I have to own a home in the district, then I wouldn't be running. I think the point here is a lot of people play a game with their residents where they say they live one place that's an investment property or something that they own. In reality, they put their head on a pillow somewhere else. And I think a lot of people know who I'm talking about in this room. So there should be some sort of teeth in the residency requirement, and it's not there right now. And to my knowledge, the only person that's been removed from office because they didn't reside in the district was the lady down in South Florida. And it was basically because she admitted she didn't live in the district, right? That was the only reason they were able to remove her, because she basically fessed up and said, no, I don't actually go put my head on the pillow there at night. So there should be some sort of residency requirement. I'm not sure property ownership is it. Thank you.
That's the end of the questions from the board. I have a few questions from the audience, and then I'll let you guys sit down. And then after that, we'll Randy Fine just get ready to be on deck in about 5 minutes, please. Okay, this one's for Representative Altman. Thank you for your public service and the multiple offices you've held in a public capacity. You've been elected to some office for a while. Why is it, or please explain the obstacles in your work in fixing the Indian River Lagoon, and what's another obstacle you continue when you run for office? Why would you be successful now in fixing it?
Well, I think the greatest obstacle that we've had in fixing the Indian River Lagoon is providing a structure for good managed growth. Adequate stormwater, adequate open space, laws that prevent significant urban runoff into the system. I've been a leader in fighting for that. And we've done a lot of things. The fact that the lagoon, although stressed and really, really hanging by its nails, it would be dead, it would be gone, we would have lost that battle. But we do have hope. And so I think that the biggest obstacle is this unimpeded growth without adequate planning and adequate infrastructure and adequate stormwater, adequate buffers along the lagoon, good land use management. And I'll continue to fight for that.
Last one is for Matt, and then I'll let you guys sit down. Can you comment on the fact that you are the watchdog for fiscal responsibility, and your message is all about fiscal conservatism? Yet financially, you had a foreclosure in 2008, and you said you have a rental property. As state representative, do you think it's important to have skin in the game by paying property taxes that help make up the budget that you'll be voting on?
So absolutely. First of all, let me tell you, I'm sure that my landlord pays her property taxes, or else, I probably wouldn't be able to rent from her. Having said that, it's a great point about the foreclosure. A lot of you may not know my background. I was in mortgage and title from about 2003 to 2008. I managed to catch the real estate bubble like a lot of other people, completely wiped me out. In the context, the greater scheme of things, I knew guys in the mortgage business that actually committed suicide. I know other people that went to be, waiters, servers, and things like that. I was able to fall back on my IT career. So absolutely, Did I go belly up in the real estate bust? Yes, I did. But I've done my best to rebuild from that, just as anybody would. This is America. That's what it's all about. You get knocked down, you get back up again, and do your best. So that's what I've done, and I think, if anything, I'm very well equipped to deal with the financial crisis that could very well be coming Florida's way if, in fact, we are in another real estate bubble, which it looks like we are. Thank you.
Please thank Matt and I and Representative Altman for being here. Thank you for coming. All right, next, Representative Randy Fine in District 53. I sent out an email yesterday and for all the Trump Club members to send an email to me, and so those are the ones that I had requested I read. Since Randy doesn't have an opponent, I'm going to let Randy talk about his campaign, and then I have a question for him, and then I'll let him go home to his family. We'll give him 10 minutes. Okay, 10 minutes.
Great, you have no choice, so there's no other alternative. I'm the only one. But look, I wanted to come tonight first to sort of acknowledge this is an amazing gathering, and Susan and the entire board of the Trump Club should be applauded for putting this together. So well done. I'm going to talk a little bit about my race, but I'm going to talk about things in general, things I think that we need to hear. If folks have learned anything about me in the last 2 years, it's I'm not afraid of the fight. I don't run away from the bullets, I run towards them. And so I have some things I want to share with you tonight. But first, I want to make sure everyone knows my mom and dad are here. So you can't boo me because my mom's here and my dad's here. I want to tell you a story about knocking on doors today, because I think it's very important to why you are here. My dad and I go out and knock on doors most days. I have the amazing Marie over there who is organizing a remarkable door knocking program for us. We were out knocking on doors today. My dad takes the doors on the right, I take the doors on the left, and my dad comes up to me and he says, I just talked to a Democrat who loves you, but he won't vote for you because you're a Republican. And I said, huh. My dad said, I bet you can go get him if you go talk to him. So I did. I walked over, I knocked on his door. He's like, wow, you people don't give up. And he came out and I said, why won't you vote for me and why do you like me? He said, well, I like you because you fight corruption. I said, really? And I said to him, I said, do you want to know why people like Donald Trump? He said, why? I said, because you like Donald Trump. You don't realize that you like Donald Trump, but you like Donald Trump. And the reason that you like Donald Trump and the reason you like me is because in your heart, you know that the game is rigged. That it's rigged. That the establishment has said that the elites have set things up in a way that regular people don't have a chance. And that's why you like what I do, because I speak truth to power. Guy said he'd vote for me. I asked, well, hey, can I put a yard sign in your yard? He said, don't go that far. So I did get the vote. Look, we're in a fight as a party today. And that is a fight between two groups. And they are not moderates versus conservatives. We'll talk about rhinos and all that sort of stuff. We're in a fight between transactional Republicans and principled Republicans. What's the difference? Well, principled Republicans do what they do because they believe in what they believe. That's why I do it. I don't worry about who wins or loses. But then you have an entire group of people who we wonder, wait, I thought they were conservative, and what happened? They actually are still conservative in their heart. The problem is their transactional desire to benefit from that service exceeds their principles, whether it's about hooking themselves up or hooking their friends up. And we as a party have to decide, which are we going to be? Are we going to be transactional or are we going to be principled? Interestingly, the Democrats have already decided this. The Hillary Clinton folks, no one would ever say they were principled. They were transactional. And you had the Bernie Sanders folks, they were principled. We don't agree with the principles, but we can't deny their principle. Everything should be free, 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 and everything's about justice, some kind of justice. So justice, Chinese food justice, whatever. Everything's about justice. And the ideologue, the principled people, they won. That's who's running the Democratic Party, and we have to decide in our own party, in our own primaries, who is it we're going to pick. But the challenge we have today, we have what I'll call this sort of axis of political evil that is out there, that I've uncovered. Because 2 years ago, I thought people did this because they wanted to do good for other people. I was stupid. There are certainly some. But you have this axis, and it involves corrupt politicians, along with crony capitalists who are looking to profit off of the deal, along with many nonprofits are good, but sort of sham nonprofits who make it sound like they're out to save the world, but when you look at what they pay their people, they're making hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then an established media that covers it all up. It covers it all up. Now let me give you one example for today, because I'm not really here to talk about myself. I'm here to talk about what I would like you all to do in general. So there was an op-ed in the paper today. I'm not going to make it about the candidates. There was an op-ed about a couple people running for the county commission. I just want to read a couple words from that op-ed, because I found it interesting, because I felt like they were talking about me. I think you might find they were talking about you. They talked about people who don't like Brevard County. They are candidates or people far to the right, whose philosophies on limited government border on anti-government. Candidates who espouse this ideology over pragmatic governance have no place making decisions about our multi-billion-dollar economy. Now that, by the way, is the position of the business group in Brevard County. I started 3 businesses over 22 years. They didn't endorse me. I never got any money from the government. But that is the position. And so I looked into this group. I looked into them a little bit more, and I found the organizing principle from their founder. I found and I'm sorry I'm scrolling back. Got to go through pictures of my kids here. Yeah, here we go, to get to it. And this group, I want to read you their founding principle. And then I'm going to challenge you to do something. This group was formed in direct response to the growing influence of what I call the vocal minority of anti-government conservative activists who were running and winning on lower taxes at all costs, cut budgets, cut services. Because guess what? The private sector can't thrive if the government isn't well run, and government can't care for its people without a thriving business tax base. Now, all of the people in this group, they all say they're Republicans. But are they transactional Republicans? Are they ideological Republicans? And so you all of an organization have a great degree of power. And as individuals have a great degree of power to help make this determination of what are we going to be? Are we going to be transactional? Or are we going to be principled? That is the decision that is before you. So get involved in these campaigns. I certainly would appreciate your support, but I think you all should consider the transactional folks. The transactional folks, they're working real hard to make sure the transactional folks win. They don't mind making endorsements. They don't mind taking shots at you. I think we're the far right people who are anti-government. Who in this room is anti-government? No, none of you. Oh, come on. What are we? We are for small government. We don't want anarchy. We're not anti-government. They're willing to put their cards on the table. The question we have to ask is, the question you all have to ask yourself is, are you willing to do the same? So look, get involved. Get on social media, put up yard signs, make phone calls, knock on doors. We'd love your help, but everybody's going to need your help when we get to November. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't know if I talked for more or less than 10 minutes, though. Thank you.
All right, this is an audience question from an email. What do you think is the true role of government?
I can tell you what it's not. How about we start with that? Now, we are near the AstroTurf, I think. So there could be some fans of the AstroTurf in the restaurant. But a core function of government is not AstroTurf. A core function of government is not museums that celebrate the careers of people who work in lighthouses, including buying authentic antiques that those employees of those lighthouses might have actually sat in. It certainly is not building RV parks that private people could build, and it's definitely not building basketball arenas that could be done by the private sector. That is not the purpose of government. It isn't that hard, right? They need to make sure the sewage isn't going in the lagoon. Let's start with that. And remarkably, you get every excuse in the world about it. My favorite is, every time we have this rain, the sewage goes in the lagoon. And you get these stories, it's like, we've had unprecedented levels of rain for July 1st, 2018. Never in the history of July 1st, 2018 has it rained this much. Never. We've got to fix the lagoon. We've got to have public safety. We've got to fix the roads. It's not hard. In the business world, we prioritize. Folks in government need to do it as well.
I want to thank Randy for being the watchdog of the south part of the county and calling out unethical politicians. Everybody give him a hand. This is an audience question I got in the email, but in every case of you being the watchdog, you have requested removals or investigations of politicians that are not in your district. But yet you have not called for the removal of requested investigations into any of the bad actors in Palm Bay, most notably Trey Holton and David Nardi. Why is that?
It's a good question. It's not an accurate question. We had a deputy mayor in my district from West Melbourne get arrested. I had some involvement in that. But as it relates to Palm Bay, I called for and received special approval from the legislature for a top to bottom audit of the entire city. The largest such special audit in years. I asked for it last July. The committee that had to vote to approve the audit did not meet until December, but at that meeting they did vote for it, and it was contentious because there were some people who didn't support it, but it passed. My understanding is that audit began in March, and it will be done when it's done. It's being done by the Auditor General of the state of Florida, who has 300 auditors and 9 offices, and none of them are in Brevard County. So I've done what I can do, and we'll see what they come up with.
Thank you. All right, next I'm going to have Gubernatorial Candidate Bob White, and then Randy, if you'll stick around, I'm going to ask everybody in the audience after he speaks and a few others. Okay. All right, next we're going to have Gubernatorial Candidate Bob White, local resident from Suntree, and thank you for being here tonight despite the rain. And for those who may not know Bob, he's just going to speak a little bit about his campaign.
Great. Well, listen, thanks very much for having me. Congratulations to the Trump Club. I love speaking at Trump clubs. I've spoken to them all over the state of Florida. And yeah, absolutely. And one of the reasons that I like speaking to Trump clubs is that I have so much in common with Donald Trump. But for instance, we're both heirs. He's a billionaire, I'm a thousandaire. I think he may have gotten the better end of that deal. He has a supermodel wife that speaks 5 languages. I wish my wife were here this evening. I have a supermodel wife that speaks 3 languages and part of a 4th. Now, she's not actually a supermodel, I just think that she could be. And let me just say that one of the most compelling reasons for you to vote for me for governor is that if you get me as governor, you get Flo as first lady, and you could not do any better than that. Obviously, there are some people in the room that know her. The third thing I have in common with Donald Trump, and this is legitimate, he ran as the outsider against the political establishment in Washington, D.C. I am running as the outsider against the political establishment in Tallahassee, Florida. We're going to go there and drain that swamp on your behalf. I give you my word. I'll come back to that outsider status in just a few minutes. Most of you know me, but some of you don't, so let me just give you a little bit about me personally. I'm a 4th generation Floridian, born and raised in Polk County, Florida, a product of the public schools. I went to the University of Central Florida back when it was still called Florida Technological University. Graduated from there with a degree in business administration. I've always made my living in the private sector, not in the public sector. Thank you. I like that. So So my wife Flo and I are married for 20 years. We have 3 grown children. We have 4 grandchildren and a 5th on the way. And if we had known they were this much fun, we definitely would have had them first. They are one of the reasons, by the way, that I'm doing this. I want to be governor of the state of Florida because I want to make sure that Florida becomes and stays the best state in the nation for people to be able to start a family and raise their children. I want to make sure that Florida becomes and remains the best state in the nation for people to be able to start and grow a business. And finally, as the chairman of the Republican Liberty Caucus of Florida and a constitutional conservative, I want Florida to become that state in the nation where the government just leaves us the hell alone and lets us live out our days in freedom and in liberty. So that's another one of the reasons that I'm compelled to run for this office. So let me back up now and tell you about my outsider status. As I said, I am the outsider running against the political establishment. I've never held public office before in my life, but for the last 7 years, as I said, I've been the chairman of the Republican Liberty Caucus of Florida. And in that capacity, I've been going back and forth to Tallahassee at my own expense during legislative sessions, during committee weeks, working on legislation that our organization either supports or opposes. So folks, I know how Tallahassee works, but more importantly, I know how Tallahassee doesn't work. And after 7 years of doing this, I am convinced that Tallahassee just doesn't work for the people of Florida anymore. It works great for the political establishment, for the politicians and the bureaucrats, the lobbyists and the special interests that the lobbyists represent. They're all in a big echo chamber up there. They're listening to each other. They're taking care of each other's needs, doing each other's business, while the needs of the people of Florida go largely unmet. And the reason this happens is very simple. It's the money. You see, you've lost your voice in Tallahassee. It's been drowned out by hundreds of millions of dollars in dark money, special interest, campaign cash that is flowing through political committees that are being operated not just by the special interests, but by the politicians themselves. It is the very definition of the swamp, and it has got to be drained. We have got to have significant, meaningful campaign finance reform. I am the only candidate in this race with a chance to win, however slim it may be at this point, with a chance to win that is not operating a political committee. My 2 main opponents have put big for sale to the highest bidder signs across the doors to the governor's office. I won't tolerate that. I guarantee you that I am the only candidate in this race that will actually go to Tallahassee and drain the swamp for you. Now that's an important issue for me. It's the issue that defines me as a candidate and separates me out from the other 2, but it's not the most important issue in this race. There are many, many more. My website is bob4florida.com. I have rack cards up here and door hangers and all kinds of things. I also have, if you will, I got this 20-second thing. I know I haven't spoken as long as Ashley Moody spoke. That can't possibly be the case. Listen, let me just say this. Go to the website, check out the other issues. Education reform is critical. Okay, I just put out a 10-page education reform package. We have got to get rid of Common Core. We've got to kick the federal government out of the state of Florida when it comes to setting educational policy. We've got to end the over-reliance on high-stakes standardized testing. And we've got to have more vocational career and technical education for those kids that aren't going to college. That's only one other issue. There's lots more. I'll answer any questions anybody might have. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, I'm going to bring up some of the other candidates. Jeff Bailey, I saw him, and then Tom Dunn. If you want to come up here and say a few words about your campaign.
So once again, I get to come before you guys. A lot of you guys have been here before. We're down in Palm Bay. I want to remind you that we have a primary this year. So if you do live in Palm Bay, it's the first time you're ever going to get to vote for your city elections on the August primary ballot. So let's remind everybody to vote then. And I guess my thing is, look, I'm not the one under investigation. I'm not the one that's going to be locked up. I'm trying to stay and keep fighting for conservative values in the city council. Thank you.
Is there any other candidates running for office besides Tom? Okay. Tom, if you want to come up and say a few words, and then after that, I'm going to open up the floor to some questions. We have Matt and I here, Bob White. I think Trudie was back here. Is Trudie still here? Oh, okay. Thad Altman? No. Okay, then. All right, Tom, you go first.
Thank you. If you weren't here last time, my name's Thomas Gahn. I'm running for Palm Bay City Council, seat 4. That seat's currently held by our president deputy mayor. I don't know if he's going to be out of jail long enough to make it to the primary. It's the truth. Go read the paper. The main reason I'm running is because of Trey Horton. I'm not running against him. I was the first one in the race. He announced after I did. But Randy, I do have one question for you to follow up on. You're willing to get a special prosecutor and ask the governor for that for Curt Smith? But you dodged a question about Trey Horton. Where's the special prosecutor for Trey Horton? Thank you very much.
I asked for a special investigation, a special prosecutor in this issue that Commissioner Smith did. You can go watch the video where he campaigned, basically gave a speech sort of like this, but in a county commission meeting. And I asked the governor to appoint a special prosecutor for really one reason and one reason only, which is the state attorney had endorsed Curt Smith. And in my view, if you endorse a candidate, it's going to be hard for you to investigate that candidate sort of fairly. And that was the reason I did it. As far as I know, there is an investigation going on, and I'm not aware that Phil Archer's endorsed anyone in Palm Bay, let alone Trey Holden. So if that's different, let me know, but that was the reason. I wouldn't have asked for the special prosecutor if it wasn't for that reason. That was the only reason I did it.
All right, does anybody have any questions? I know Alice had, Alice and then Bobby. Alice? Do you have a question for a candidate? Bobby, do you have a question for a candidate?
Randy, we had 870,000 gallons of raw sewage slipped into the Indian River on Monday and Tuesday from Pattersville. And that sewage leaks for the past 7 years of that track. What are we going to do about it?
Sure.
It's like a nightmare.
I'll repeat the question. The question was, we had 870,000 gallons of raw sewage put into the lagoon yesterday in Titusville. It's been going on for years. What are we going to do about it? Is that very clear? Okay. So the first thing, I want to actually challenge the premise of the question. It's an estimated 870,000 gallons of raw sewage. It appears that was actually happening for a while before the person actually discovered it. I don't think we know how much raw sewage went into the lagoon. So that's something else. It was a lot, and 870,000 gallons is a lot. What are we going to do about it? Look, we have to change the decision-making process. That's what we have to do. Because for whatever reason, AstroTurf is a higher priority than fixing sewage. And so until we change the politician's mentality, that's not going to change. Now, I have done a couple of things. I freed up to $75 million over the next 5 years that the politicians could spend to fix the sewer system if they wanted to. Thus far, they have chosen not to. That's important to know. They said AstroTurf, more important than fixing the Indian River Lagoon. First thing. Second thing is I worked with the DEP to get a $12 million fine against Brevard County for that 22 million gallon spill. And they said it was unlike meetings. They normally meet with the politicians, and they're like, look, don't be mean to my friends. Don't punish them too much. Don't be late. I said, no, drop the hammer. Drop it. So I will continue to push that. But what I can do if I'm reelected is next session I will be introducing legislation that dramatically increases the fines. Dramatically. Makes them crippling. Because that will change it. But to be clear, it won't be fines you have to send a bunch of money to Tallahassee. That won't actually do anything. It will basically be fines in the form that those things have to be spent on fixing the sewage system.
Thank you. Any other questions for any of the candidates up here? We have Representative Klein, Matt Nye, Bob White, Jeff Bailey. Normally, our meetings aren't 3 hours, but I wanted to get all the different races, so I want to thank all of you for coming out in the horrible weather tonight. Our next Trump Club meeting will be September 19th here at Tequila Azul. And then because we are a growing club, I'm going to have it at the County Commission Chambers the first Wednesday of the month. But Congressman Bill Posey will be the speaker for the next event on September 19th. And make sure that you fill out your email address to Matt. He's one of the officers and our social media expert, so you guys can stay in touch. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your evening and drive safely home.